Hey trucked up guys and gals, well, the party's over. Slate Auto has finished serving up all the top social media influencers with plates of shrimp hors d'oeuvres and likely booze, and had them toot Slate's talking points on cue like a bunch of cheesed up parrots. Now don't get me wrong, huge credit is due here. It pulled off an incredibly well-executed reveal and successfully hyped up their truck concept and got the whole country buzzing, and for good reason. And the result, after everyone has checked out of their hotels, is a complete saturation of YouTube with fluffy plugs and giddy endorsements of what could be a great addition to the EV truck segment. Under $20,000. It's electric. It's smaller than the Maverick and just as capable. And it's all fully backed by Jeff Bezos as the next Amazon basics of automobiles, blah, blah, blah. But what's hype? What's realistic? What's financially doable? And what's a load of bunk? With all the fanfare now out of the way, we can finally get a realistic look at what's being pitched as the cheapest EV truck currently available in America that can be custom fit like some kind of a 3-ton Mr. Potato Head.
All right. Hey, watch it!
Anyway, I'm going to showcase what I think they got right, what they didn't, what Slate totally glazed over in somewhat misleading ways, and what they totally botched as far as what most U.S. pickup truck folk out there really want, and whether setting up shop in the U.S. to deliver it was maybe their biggest blunder of all. So let's drop the tailgate, lift the frunk, and get totally trucked up. Now, I promised you I'd name the new trucked up little drone. See, there's a little drone here. And I said that I'd name our new drone now that it's been added to our shooting list after one of my amazing Patreon members or super thanks supporters right here that's been running up on the side here. But even better news is one of you will also forevermore have me breathing into your face, because for $50, I also got this cool mic just below the screen here. It's going to improve the sound quality of my videos, I'm hoping, so please let me know if that's working or not. And I apologize in advance for the poor sod who gets their name stuck on this. And will experience how much garlic I actually eat. But here goes. This for our drone. Here we go. Not gonna leave it all in there, see? It's in a Tilly hat too, pretty dapper. And I'm gonna reach in here. Okay. For hereafter, the drone shall be referred to as Bailey. Say hello to Bailey. Take a bow, Bailey. There we go. And for the fuzzy listening device, shall hereafter don the title of, I've moved it all over the place, it's probably making all kinds of funny noises. I should get my hands off of that. I'm an idiot. We're gonna shake this up. We'll forever don the title of, here we go. Not looking. The mic is now named Ryan. Sorry, Ryan. They'll be joining the trucked up film crew, Tara the GoPro, James the battery pack,
Yo.
and Lionel the ND filters in future episodes, so stay tuned. Okay, back to the real drama. Let's jump into the top things about this truck, along with the flaws, which we'll look at as we go. The first thing is kind of obvious. At first glance, it's cheaper than any other standard EV truck currently available in North America. There. I said it. By stripping a truck down to its essentials, we end up with a reasonably affordable pickup that just so happens to be electric. That's the media pitch anyway. For those who have been in a coma for the past month, or drifting at sea on a chunk of wood since April and somehow missed the orchestra of blathering on this, the Slate truck is a 5-foot bed, single cab, rear-wheel drive only, bare-bones EV pickup, about 20 inches shorter than the Ford Maverick. It offers only one factory option, and that's a standard 52.7 kilowatt-hour battery claiming 150 miles, or the extended battery at 84.3 kilowatt-hours at 240 miles, with no price bump reveal yet on the latter. Slate claims towing in the neighborhood of a paltry 1,000 pounds. But it says that's not what its main goal is with this naked eco truck. And that's it. So thank you and good night. Oh, and remember to tip before you leave. Don't drink and park. And accidents cause people. Thank you. Okay, there's a bit more than that. So you get 2 seats. You get a steering wheel and the basic requirements that you have to have under law, along with air conditioning and standard cruise control. There. That's definitely it. There's only one trim, and it's called the blank slate. I know, it's so droll it's almost witty. But where this digresses from any other vehicle, whether gas, diesel, or EV, and I deliberately didn't say truck, is this massive accessory section where you will supposedly be able to spec out your truck as you can afford it. By attaching almost limitless truck bits, you can just accessorize your bank account dry if you like, such as adding a touchscreen, speakers, power windows. Yeah, Slate's truck comes stock with a manual roll downs, like a stereo. You may want that. Even a conversion pack that, again, theoretically, one can swap out within only hours and turn your entire pickup into an SUV like a frickin' transformer. But here is some misleading stuff right out the gate. It's not that cheap. In fact, it's not cheap at all. If we were to strip down any EV to a steering wheel, 2 pedals, and a stalk, the cost would drop on all of them. And few folk are going to buy one of these things and do nothing to it, which means almost everyone is going to spend a lot more buying all the gadgets and bits. That's the whole idea. But that completely negates the fact that yes, any auto OEM, any industry auto leader out there could do this and get the bare bones price down. But nobody has. No one has ever done this. But that still doesn't make it any cheaper. It just makes it more flexible. Also, it's nowhere near $20,000 US for this truck. That's just crap. Let's be realistic. Trump is going to gut EV incentives, so for Slate to market its truck as under $20,000 is outright false. It's deliberately misleading. It's like when Tesla shows your Model 3 price with projected savings over the lifetime of the vehicle calculated in. Just give me the damn price and stop trying to be cheeky. It makes you look disingenuous because well, you're being disingenuous. This thing is a minimum $27,000. And that's if it ever holds true to that price by the time it gets to market, which no EV startup has ever pulled off, which means this is no Model T or Volkswagen Beetle of old, as Slate Auto claims, touting itself as the people's car. Sure, for a young family or single person trying to buy their first new car and wants an EV, this is by far the cheapest way to start. But I emphasize start. If anyone puts anything but the bare bones on this thing, the cost is going up significantly. If we look at the small trucks of the 1970s, they're around $7,000, $7,200, and if we add in inflation, we're still about $8,000 higher when we get to today on a Slate truck. But again, those were all gas. Will this be close enough on price to convince first-time EV buyers to take the plunge and upgrade later? It all depends on how the rest of the industry responds to this potential threat. If GM, Ford, or Stellantis decide this is going to hurt them, and one of them comes out with a Chevy S10-esque EV Maverick response unit for a similar price, the Slate truck might take on another state of rock. Crushed. There is so much risk here. If Ford's T3 project is actually cooking something up as Farley claims it is, that a smaller, cheaper, and simpler EV truck is forthcoming, then Slate is cooked. What I disagree with, however, is how some of the media picks this truck apart by comparing it to all the stuff one gets with something like the Maverick or a Nissan Leaf or a new Chevy Bolt or any other vehicle, gas, diesel, or otherwise, on the road. The only thing this truck should be compared to is other EVs, especially EV trucks, whether that's globally or domestically, but that would be a fair assessment. According to Edmunds, there's not a single US EV other than the Leaf that prices below $30,000 US in 2025, and it only does so by a couple of bucks. The biggest price comparison that could even be considered somewhat relevant, since we're talking trucks here, is the base trim Maverick Hybrid XL. And this is something I consider highly misleading again by the media trying to make this case as if it's apples to apples. Let's make it simple here. Ford isn't currently making an EV Maverick, and it isn't for a reason. And it isn't due to a lack of interest. It's due to a lack of profit margins. The moment it would make one of these things, add $20,000 US to the Maverick price tag. Period, paragraph. And with so many Americans still listening to the Fudchuckers all day long, everyone would just go back and buy the hybrid anyway, and Ford knows it. With the Maverick Hybrid XL, you're still looking at over $30,000 US after freight and dealer fees, which might or might not exist supposedly on the Slate truck. Then factor in gas, oil, maintenance, and based on the lifetime cost when compared, about 400% the annual amount of dough out of your pocket to run it, and expect no huge fuel gain economy leap over the gas Maverick, just more complexity and more things to go wrong. I'll provide a link in the description below, and the video's right here, on how hybrid trucks might actually be a bad choice. So besides the hype and the rebates and the marketing, one thing still remains true. The blank slate, the base, the one trim that everybody gets in the standard range battery pack is still cheaper than any other EV option out there currently. And then there's that catalog. The right to repair, the ability to customize our trucks was a tradition most truck folk took great pride in and still do, but that has proven increasingly difficult with escalating pricing, higher complexity, more module control units and chips, and reduced choices. I don't know a single truck owner who hasn't gone out literally days after picking up their new wheels and adding some kind of accessory, whether that be a gun rack, seat cover, canopy, lift kit, mud flaps, you name it. So the actual cost of all of our trucks balloons pretty fast once it's in our driveway or parked next to the barn. But what if we can do that with everything and never pay for all the crap we don't want or will never use? And how many folk have bought a utility truck, or wanted to, that gets used every now and then, but have an SUV that gets used a lot more? Can you imagine accessorizing your truck into an SUV? Hype or not, that's freaking genius. I love this. This accessory concept, return to do-it-yourself for truck lovers, is not only novel, it's craved by truck owners. What Slate has inaugurated is a new paradigm in speccing out the concept of trim. Absolutely, every part of this truck can be customized, right down to the ride height and interior seating. The fact that the single cab back window is removable and can drop down a midgate and then use that same back window for the SUV conversion kit is just brilliant reverse engineering. That's offering deep thought into efficiency, but not from the perspective of the company, like Tesla does, but from that of the owner regarding usability. But then when we get back to the price, it looks a lot less attractive. The current estimate on that SUV conversion kit, which will likely increase before it ever gets to market, is already north of $5,000. It's now a $32,000 ride. Throw in the larger battery pack, because no one outside of fleet owners will want only 150 miles, and up we go. Based on the anticipated price of NCM batteries, another issue we're going to get to, they're estimated around $80 per kilowatt hour by 2026, and throw in some profit margin for Slate, and that's another $3,500 for the extended range package to be added in. It takes only moments on the accessories page and adding that extended range to hit 40 grand, and that makes this truck a non-starter for a vast majority of first-time new vehicle buyers. But this also has its share of hype. Slate hasn't clarified exactly how this will happen logistically and infrastructurally. And while looking at as accessories as primary means of gaining back the margins it wouldn't make on the truck itself, it ironically claimed it will all be open source and 3D printable and capable of anyone sourcing out accessory parts. There seems to be a cannibalizing of its own profits right out the gate. Why would Slate butcher its own gravy train before it even gets going? And who are all these third parties and locations to do the installs when a majority of folk, including myself, won't want to do it ourselves? And how well distributed will all that network be? And no, there's no indication that Slate accessories will be directly sold and shipped via Amazon. I'll get to that hype in a minute. Then there's the no paint palette option, where we, the Slate truck owner, can easily wrap our own Slate any way we can dream up. I have vivid images of individuals suffocating in reams of wrap glued to themselves. You doubt me? Just watch any North American assemble IKEA furniture and get back to me on how well that went. The other big hype story relating to that do-it-yourself wrap job was that the body is plastic and there's no paint. So no paint shop. Billions saved, right? Well, who's going to paint everything else? Who's going to paint all the other parts of the truck then? What about all the stamps under those panels? There's a lot of missing details that doesn't simply go away by not painting the skin. But the biggest hype that also involved the largest amount of misleading information that was conveniently left for everyone to speculate about was how this multi-billion-dollar startup would be funded. Even I was drawn into this speculation and went off the first reports in my earlier video that Slate was an Amazon founder Jeff Bezos' creation, funded via his family companies, including Rebuild Manufacturing. But it turns out that, no. Jeff Bezos was one of a group of investors, 16 in total, who provided the seed capital in a Series A financing round that totaled $110 million. That's with an M, not a B. In other words, as far as we know, Jeff Bezos or Bezos, he could have thrown $100 at it and gone back to work playing with his dick-shaped rocket ship. Oh my God, you're so big. The Amazon founder has thrown a lot of pocket change wads at numerous things he likes, and this was obviously no different. Remember his role in Rivian? This is so much less than that. Even if the entire $110 million came out of his chump change piggy bank. And last time I checked, no one is starting an auto company from scratch with $110 million. According to TechCrunch, this was followed with a Series B financing round that, if all 500 million outstanding preferred shares were sold at the revealed $2.37 US, that's a little over $1 billion, but it's not the $6 billion minimum needed to get this thing on the road. And then there's those batteries. Slate just inked a $2.8 billion supply deal with Korea's SK On or SK Innovations. It's a battery manufacturer from Korea to produce enough batteries for 300,000 trucks in the US. What comes as a surprise is that this is for NCM batteries, or nickel, cobalt, manganese, rather than the cheaper, more reliable and longer lasting LFP or lithium iron phosphate chemistry. Sure, that type is less dense, but they also reduce the thermal management demand, can be charged continuously to 100%, and are considerably cheaper. Why is this important? LFPs are mostly made in China, and the US is on a tariff tear that wipes out any cost-effective hope of accessing these without some means of tapping into some sort of domestic production. So here it is. Slate might be manufacturing this truck in the wrong market. If one wants to sell a lot of inexpensive bare-bones pickups at the lowest cost, the US, the world's worst adoption holdout to EVs and EV trucks, is probably the worst place to do it. Americans are already screaming that Slate isn't a cheap truck, it's just a cheap EV, and who wants one of those, right? And the range is absolutely unacceptable. But between 1/4 and 1/3 of the rest of the frickin' planet's population wants EVs and wants small EV trucks. In other words, the hardest sell for the Slate is right at home. Slate has a massive uphill battle. And the only reason for that uphill battle is because it is trying to exclusively sell to Americans while trying to exclusively produce the whole damn thing in America. I can't order it in Canada. I tried. Am I pouty about it and bitter? Not really, because the same applies to the rest of the world. This is an American mini EV truck built for Americans who, for the most part, aren't buying EV trucks or EVs in any numbers that are comparable to almost every other country in the world. This decision has already had negative design, infrastructural, supply, and component consequences, such as the batteries it will use, which are more money because of trying to access incentives that are about to die anyway, and ridiculous tariffs that are eliminating the best battery tech from being used in American cars, meaning more money for less attractive, soon-to-be outdated product. This is just dumb. If Slate were to set up shop in any other country other than the US and sell domestically just to that country as its startup segment before coming to the United States, it would have more access to cheaper manufacturing with more supply chain options while selling at higher margins for a lower frickin' price. Based on the SK On or SK Innovation battery agreement alone, Slate is banking on only 300,000 units over a time period spanning 2026 to 2031. That's 5 full years to move just over 250,000 trucks. If this entire company operated in Australia, Korea, Canada, or in several cost-effective EU countries and then sold exclusively to that region, or was able to fully access the entire EU market, tapping into higher incentives both at a consumer and government infrastructural investment level, Slate would easily shave hundreds of millions off the cost while adding considerably to its margins, and the domestic market for only 60,000 trucks per year exists easily in every one of those markets. And lastly, Slate made 3 really dumb blunders when it comes to selling to North Americans regarding what they want in a truck. That, again, ironically, seems more geared to other markets than the US. And let's look at those. That's the bed, the range and charging, and the drivetrain. First, the bed. Sure, it's 5 feet long, But most tiny trucks, including Japan's K-trucks that I talked about in this video, all have at least 6-foot beds, even 8-foot. But that's not the worst of it. Look at the photos of how Slate Auto made it look like it can fit 4x8 sheets of plywood in the bed. And therein lies the problem. This thing is narrower than the Maverick by several inches. Sure, it's got pretty good payload numbers, estimated at over 1,400 pounds, but its total capacity is only 37 cubic feet. Compare that to like the Ranger at almost 44 that also has a 5-foot bed, and you get the picture. Then there's that pesky range. I just see this having a market as a great commercial truck, set with that standard battery, where they have a set route. But American consumers want and expect more. Long gone are the days of the first Nissan Leafs. And if Slate wants to compete, it's dead in the water at 150 miles, and here's why. Remember all those accessories? How about throwing in those few extra seats, a topper, and a bunch of airbags when you convert it? You know what that's called? Weight. And we all know that weight is our enemy when it comes to electric range. The moment you start adding on tons of extras and then you draw more current, there's no way you're going to get 150 miles. And that means if you want any semblance of range, you'll be bumping up to the extended package and goodbye to all that hyped economy. Also, if Slate is truly trying to sell these things to first-time buyers with such a range limitation, did anyone ask where all those people live? They sure in the heck don't live in big houses with garages. So how exactly will they be charging every day? If the buyer can't install a level 2 in their home, apartment complex, townhouse, or underground parking area, this thing's a non-starter for the very people Slate claims it is trying to reach. No one wants to charge every 100 miles at a DC fast charger costing 5 to 10 times more than charging at home. Lastly, if you're going to limit a truck buyer to a single drive unit with no locking differentials, you're going to flop if you don't go the way Ford did with the Maverick by installing your drive in the front. If it had any towing creds or more truck-like capabilities, then yes, I can see how a rear-wheel drive configuration makes sense, but it doesn't here. All in all, there's a lot of good ideas and great potential wrapped up in this concept, but after really diving into this thing, that's what we've got so far. A concept with speculative funding, a precarious pathway to production, and a cutthroat U.S. auto industry already under pressure that will do everything to ensure Slate fails if it threatens its gravy train. If this thing goes to market as is, and can't bring that price down while enhancing the bare basics a U.S. small truck owner seeks, I'm not as optimistic about Slate's future as I was before I knew the details. If you have your own take on this truck that I've overlooked, or new information that has come to the forefront, please share it below. And if you'd like to get an idea of what Slate Auto is really up against in the tiny EV truck space by the time it launches, you definitely want to check out the video right here. As always, thanks for watching.